Welcome to the first video on Aristotle. So Aristotle is going to be concerned with a lot of the same questions that Plato is, and his method is going to be one that I'm going to call a kind of metaphysical grammar. What do I mean by metaphysical grammar? Well, the metaphysics, it gets its name from the book of Aristotle, the Metaphysics, and it was called that because it came before the physics. In the traditional ordering of the books of Aristotle. And you might think, well, that's a really arbitrary way to get a name, and you'd be right. But there's some truth in the name. So metaphysics studies what has to be the case in order for there to be a physics, in order for there to be a physical world at all, in order for there to be something rather than nothing. The truths of metaphysics have to obtain. So metaphysics is what comes before physics. It's the book that came before the physics, but it's also what has to be true in order for physics to be true. And so Aristotle, in the categories, what we're going to be examining today, is concerned with issues in metaphysics, and he examines those issues by reflecting on grammar, reflecting on the grammar of our language. And here he's sort of taking a cue from Plato. So in Plato, we saw that the forms were things like the equal, the beautiful, the just, the pious. And each of these forms is a kind of abstract noun, right? It seems to designate a thing, the equal, the beautiful. And so they're abstract nouns that designate properties or attributes that things have in common, like being beautiful or like being equal. And these abstract nouns, they seem to be referring expressions, right? So they seem to have an object that they refer to. I mean, if I talk about the horse over there, well, either there's a horse over there or not, but there's a particular thing that I'm talking about. There's a particular thing that I'm referring to. Or if I talk about John, that's a referring expression that refers to John. Either John exists or John doesn't. Either I succeed in referring or not. And similarly, Plato's forms seem to be referring expressions that refer to something. And in particular, in Greek, and to a lesser extent in English, we can take any adjective, verb, or even a whole phrase and nominalize it. We can turn it into a noun that seems like it refers to things. So we can take beauty and nominalize it into the beautiful, or piety, we can nominalize it and turn it into the beautiful. And in English, this is a little bit awkward, but in Greek, this is very natural. You can do this all over the place all the time. There's sort of very little constraints on it. And Plato kind of rolls with this. He says, right, yeah, we can nominalize adjectives, verbs, whatever. And in nominalizing, these nominalized versions of the adjectives, the verbs, seem to be referring expressions. They seem to indicate something, and so they do, says Plato, right? They actually do refer to something. The beautiful refers to the beautiful, a real thing. And in this sense, Plato is a kind of extreme realist. He thinks that the forms refer to real things, real intelligible things that the intellect can know. And we're going to see that Aristotle says, wait a minute, hold on, not so fast. There are other features of the grammar of language that suggest a different story. And if we reflect on these other features of how we talk about things, we'll get a different picture of the way that things have to be in order for there to be physics. We'll get a different metaphysics, right? In particular, Aristotle is going to begin from the same phenomenon that we can nominalize anything. We can nominalize any old property, beautiful, double, etc. Right? And he's going to go back and return to sort of an ancient paradox that was commonly thought about by the pre-Socratics, so the philosophers that came before Socrates. This paradox is the paradox of the one and the many. And sort of the question in a nutshell is, how can one thing be many things? How can one be many? And the idea here is, take my water bottle. Take my water bottle. It's purple. You know, it's cylindrical. It's full of water. It's hard. And you know, if I take my water bottle, I put it on the table and I say, put it in front of you, and I say, what is this? Well, there's a lot of different answers you could give me. You could say, well, it's this cylindrical, or it's this purple, or it's this water bottle, or it's this hard, right? And so it seems like there's one thing here, but actually it's many. I mean, it seems like it's both one thing and many things, right? That's the idea, because it's this cylindrical, this purple, this water bottle, and yet it's all this one thing in front of you. And so it seems to both be one and many, but that seems contradictory, right? I mean, how can one thing be many things? It seems like one thing is not many things. And the pre-Socratics tried to answer this in a couple different ways. So you get, on the one hand, Parmenides, who wants to say that what exists is one and unchanging. And so Parmenides denies that there are many things, right? Parmenides just says there is no many, one equals one. And Heraclitus goes the opposite route. So Heraclitus, he thinks everything is constantly flowing. There is nothing permanent, according to Heraclitus. And so there is no one, there's just the many. And so he denies that there is one thing. There's just many things. There's just all of these many things, and there's not one, and so there's no problem. And Aristotle is going to go a different route. So Aristotle thinks, hold on, guys, you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. One thing can be many things. One thing can be many things. And so the question is going to be, how can one thing be many things? And we'll turn to that